Hello, friends, enemies, and those undecided. Will here, diving into another progress report from the depths of the ocean on Age of the Deep for the month of December. This was a really good month, y'all. I am just excited about how much work we got done. We're going to get into it here in a second. Just more. Okay. So I spent a little bit of time working on the skill system some more. This part here is just verifying that I can affect the base stats, which is a pretty good place to start. But I didn't want to just leave it at base stats. And you'll notice here that there's also no feedback besides, the little box around the box momentarily clicks. It's not entirely great feedback. So with that in mind, I wanted to do a little bit extra feedback. So now I should have colored boxes when I click. Come on, click it. Yeah, there you go. So, yellow is fully purchased. Blue's got a little bit of point spin in it. And at first I thought that was going to be good enough feedback to convey that you, in fact, purchased the skill point. And I was told that that's not really the case. So we'll get to that here in a second on how I continued to work on the feedback, which was quite a bit of work to do. And here's where I replaced all the placeholder art assets for the icons with my own from my awesome badass artist. It's not every skill point has its own unique icon yet. This was just mocking up how it would look after the fact, after I get all the rest of the assets. And the smaller icons on the front are going to represent which specific stat or skill that they modify. And I say skill because you'll notice I have increases power of water shot by 10%. So in my skill component, I do have a skill called Water Shot, which I believe for Mori is the shotgun kind of blast. And this skill here will increase the attack power modifier by 10% of Water Shot. It was also kind of a neat challenge to get my hover widget there to update that information, because before, just with the stat, it's like, sure, you increase health by 5%, but here I had to add the name of the ability, and I had to add the part of the ability that I would be modifying. So I have power, I have attack, I have cooldown. That's three things I had to add to the skill tree just to be able to modify the skills themselves. And adding that into the already existing hover widget that I made for the base skills, that was quite a bit of work just to do that, because you're telling that hover widget to go from, one or two modifiers to suddenly three modifiers at the same time, and you're switching it between a stat and a skill. And once again, you'll see my little feedback here on just the blue box, and then it'll go yellow if I fully purchase the skill. And here's when I showed off this part of the skill to other people, and they said, you need more feedback. So then I went over to Krita. And here's me, well, we'll get to that here in a second, because here's me just testing the fact that the power of the Water Shot actually does a little bit more than the base damage of 7, and then the cooldown on the bottom right icon does work. And I had to keep fine-tuning that too to get the cooldown to be affected by the skill choice parts. And there's my feedback right there. Alright, so I went to Krita, and then I hand drew frame by frame this splash on a sprite sheet, and then I added that to a material, and then I used the tick event of the animation to adjust the render opacity, and then the render opacity is what changes the flipbook material from one animation of that effect as per tick or whatever nonsense. But I thought it came out really good, and then everybody liked that this was the feedback I settled on, was the splash effect. And then I added sounds. And this part was continuing to mock up my shop inventory, and I got the scroll bar to work with the gamepad. That part was challenging because I had to create an on-hover event dispatcher for which panel, either player inventory panel or the shop inventory panel that I was hovering over, and then that would set the scroll bar that I should be activating. And then I went into player input, and when thumbstick right, up, or down, activate scroll bar by a tick of scroll bar offset. That part was pretty brutal to figure out, but once I got that done, I went on to add that to my shop upgrades. And here I kept updating the inventory to make sure that the hover widget worked for that again. Because the hover widget broke when I got the scroll widget to work. So I had to adjust how I did that. And here's where I got the scroll bar to work with my item upgrade screen. And then I began to mock up my dialogue system. This is all placeholder art. Don't beat me up on it. I'm using art from somewhere else. Hades. This is one of my inspirations, and I absolutely love these games from Supergiant. Bastion is what got me kind of thinking about wanting to do an indie dev before my imposter syndrome one all those years ago, and then until recently when I picked all this back up to show you guys all this crazy monthly progress I make. So the reason I have Hades up here is because I absolutely love the way they did their dialogue system. So we're going to go back in here. Poseidon comes up. Now, did you guys notice that? How fast that was? Now look, I'm going to rewind and try to find this. We're going to come in here slowly. See, that's how fast this goes. I don't know if I can even catch it. Oh my gosh. Just furiously smashing the keyboard to try to pause. Okay, so here you'll notice the character portrait transforms over from the left side of the screen. He's got some background stuff that's going to come in from the right. His text box has this beautiful material that just comes in and does that, and the text will fade in. The text box itself will transform from the left a little bit to the right, just barely. And then the text, the body text here, this was interesting because it starts out green, and then it uniformly, almost like a progress bar, will go to black from left to right. And that was a really beautiful effect. And I tried like hell to replicate how they pulled that off. I failed miserably. So what I did was I got this rich text to work here where it will change the color of the text. It's not pretty, it wasn't meant to be, but it was just practicing and experimenting with this. So the rich text will, on a timer event, get the count of each word, and then on a timer event, take the color of the word and change it. I was going to try to get this to work the way that Supergiant got with their text, but I wasn't able to get it to work uniformly line by line at the same time. And I probably could have eventually done it, but the amount of time that I would have had to put into doing that just really didn't make sense for me as a solo dev. So what I did instead was I just added a simple render opacity that just works quickly, and the text just pops in like that. And I think that's simple and elegant enough, and it looks good for what I'm doing. I was happy with that. And all of this is just a really super basic data table. And I believe here is where I kept working on this. And I wanted to make sure I could update the data tables to where if you're talking to a character, I can change it mid-text. And this was an important part for me to get to work because, as Hadrian says here, there's a surprise. And there's something I've always wanted to do with this game, from the earliest moments where I was pitching it and trying to get funding and show it to a few people. And this system here worked. So what I wanted to do was to make sure I could get sign language working in this game. And originally what I wanted to do was to have my friend who speaks sign language to go into a motion capture studio with me and do the performance herself and bring this character to life, because she and her mom use sign language to communicate with each other. Well, her mom ended up passing away during this development, and that ultimately was going to be an extremely expensive thing for me to get going with the motion capture studio anyway, and getting her down there, and things just weren't going to work out anymore. But I still wanted to continue finding a way to bring this character to life like this, and I think I found a good solution when I designed to do the dialogue more like Hades and less like a third-person version of the Outriders dialogue that I was originally going to try. I think that works well. And I'm happy with that, and that was day 195 for the year of working on the game when I got that to work, and I would have been happy just giving up for the year right there until next year to pick this back up, but I really did want to make my 200-day goal, so I kept working on that. And here's where I expanded the data tables to account for the fact that you might be playing but playing the specific player character. I wanted to make sure I could get the data table to switch from character to character. That would allow me to get unique dialogue for the character. Say the quest person suddenly knows who the player character is, might want to say something different, might want to address the fact that Vey uses sign language. Could have character specific quests later on down the road. Listen to Mori, go Wishlist Age of the Deep. And to prove out that that works, I'm going to back out of the game right here. Come on, load it. Click the button. Also, while y'all are waiting for this to load, y'all can click follow below on my channel to watch monthly updates while I build an indie game on my own. It's painful, but it's a lot of fun. So here I am, I loaded in the game as Hadrian. His data table works just like that. So the NPCs know who you are playing as. So this is going to let me just have all kinds of fun dialogue options, character-specific quest, character-specific dialogue. And you'll notice I also centered the text because I think that just looks better. And I just got to wait on all the art for the character portraits that I'm going to use, and the background and the nameplate and all that stuff's got to get done too. It's just an enormous amount of art that has to be done for this game at this point, because I've mocked up almost every single widget that's going to be in the game, aside from crafting. I mean, I have the upgrade system, which works great, but I haven't made a crafting widget because I'm not sure if that's something that is needed. Perhaps that's something I'll address next year, because I enjoy crafting items, but I don't enjoy durability. That's why I made the upgrade system, is because I just want to pick up a weapon, and if I don't get an upgraded item for my level, I can go to the upgrade station and I can make that item stronger for a couple of levels until I find something better. But I might just go ahead and just go full bore, since I have so many resources free to collect now, and make a item crafting mechanic. I mean, it should be pretty easy to do at this point with everything else I already have in the game, and it would kind of make sense. And I don't need an NPC to do that. I could just mock up a table or something. But I watched Indie Game Clinic's video recently on typography. It's not something I ever considered thinking about. But if you guys are like me and you guys are starting off with a whole bunch of asset templates, you're going to have 7 or 12 different fonts. You're going to have Roboto, you're going to have Squid Ink, Chicken Blot. I mean, these names are crazy, but there's going to be a whole bunch of fonts in there. And you're not going to notice at first if you're like me, because I'm just like, ooh, font, whatever, word, text, type it in, it's good to go. Not really. I had literally between 7 and 12 text types and fonts all over every place, because all the templates are different. Nobody wants to use the same thing. The things that came in from Epic on their templates they've been giving us are all Roboto. Somebody else might use something else. But the Indie Game Clinic guy, on his video on Typography, said you want to try to keep it to 2 fonts with some variations for a couple other texts like italics for stats and things like that. So I wanted to update my widgets while I was doing the mocking of all of them. And I went over to Google Font and got a bunch of open license fonts, and I spent the last couple days doing that. I updated that, and the skill tree was all updated to Inkblot Antiqua and Inria Sans, which I think I'm happy with that. It looks pretty good. I mean, I obviously missed the skill tree part at the top, and I think the common weapon here on my hover plate is still that. Finished up mocking, or I don't want to say finished because I'm not entirely happy with this. I mocked up the quest widget a little bit better, so you'll see I have some like cute little icon pips that I drew for XP. If this little bar will go away, it won't. So I did that in Krita for the reputation and the XP, and we'll get to what those. I mean, obviously XP is self-explanatory, but we'll get to the reputation part in a future video as I continue working on this stuff. But I updated all the font for all of this stuff. And that's pretty much where I ended up the year. I hit my 200 days of indie dev goal for the year, which is absolutely crazy to document over on Twitter. Day 1 was January 1st of this year. Day 200 was yesterday on the 21st, I think. So, I mean, this is insane how much work I got done. I took a whole bunch of 0 days in there because that's important. A lot of ups and downs. I got a lot of work done with the team, the artists, the modelers, Cindy, Chelsea. Thank y'all so much for helping me out. Rachel continues to tolerate me talking to her about music and stuff like that. Grant's awesome, has done all the soundtrack in the game so far. And with the dialogue system working like it is, I went ahead and told the writer to get started on some dialogue, and hopefully next year I'll have the first segment for the first island done, and I can try to put together some short little demo and get some in-house opinions on what's going on. So you guys, if y'all are new to the channel, go ahead and click follow, leave some comments on what y'all think, what y'all want to see in the game, and next year we're going to pick it back up. Talk to you guys later. It's been a lot of fun. Bye.